as a video call. But since we're all ugly old dudes, we don't do the video part.
Yeah, I don't want to break anybody's monitors, so I'm doing my part.
No, you do not nix. There's the phone number part is an extra feature, so if you don't, well, maybe not, but you don't have to add it. We'll have Nix in here in a moment, folks. Just managing our newfangled technology here.
We're having some technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Working as intended.
It's a feature.
Here we go. Let's see if we can connect. Hey, what's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Was that a yes?
That might have been a yes.
Okay.
That's a yes.
Sorry about that. I guess I'm...
You're what?
Hey, I can hear everyone.
Voices in your head.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm getting a repeat of what people are saying for some reason.
You gotta mute your
stream.
Yeah, you gotta mute your stream
The Twitch
Okay.
channel.
in
Let
Twitch.
me mute that. That's annoying. There you go. All right.
All right. So let us get into it. So you had some points you wanted to make about Wally in Evil. Go right ahead, sir.
All right. All right. Firstly, I mean, again, it depends on what your plan is, right? Like where you look to take the game. You know, so like if you're initially just making like vanilla DFC, then it's completely unnecessary. I agree with Daleth and Devo completely. As far as the volley itself, I mean, really, like it all hinged upon Light and Dark. That was the big deal with it. And why it kind of like we didn't really need it, because really only Chaos kind of fucked Evil over, because they weren't really affected by Light and Dark, but they were such a little amount of nulls that it didn't even matter.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
So
Yeah,
it was very strong, but there wasn't enough people to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, because there's been instances where I've been leading in evil and in chaos and stuff like that, where volley, if light and dark is not taken into account and volley is able to just work as intended, it can totally fuck evil up badly because we really had no counter to it. So our options at that point are either we need to rush or we need to move back. And either or can be bad, because if you're moving back, then you start losing people and they get picked off. And if you rush, then maybe you don't want to rush at that moment. You're kind of, you're at a disadvantage. Volley was able to dictate battles if there were enough gnolls or enough rangers. But again, it was worse all for good, because if there was enough evil, then volley did nothing. It would just miss.
Right.
The other issue with volley too against evil there was no middle ground. Evil had classes that were either really strong to volley defensively, like skeletons and zombies, or really weak to volley, like vampires and necromancers and imps and things like that. So there was very little middle ground. Like wolves could kind of take some hits, but we really couldn't, in a sense, because we bled, we poisoned, we diseased. It would do like 200, 300. We'd have to get out of shape to heal, unless we were like following a sin or something like that. Then that was moot. But so really, I guess like Burning Hand was like, or Demons in general were like the middle ground job. Everything else was kind of like skewed one way or another. Again, depending on where you want to take the game. So if you can't figure out how to really properly balance light and dark, and you decide not to take it, then I think it becomes necessary. And then it goes, all right, well, do you want to give volley to an existing class? And then you have to figure out, all right, well, what would be the best job to get volley? Because if you give it an existing class volley, then you're going to basically change the entire way that job worked and the way that people were used to it. And if you don't, then you're going to have to create one from scratch. And then who knows when that's going to be.
Right. Yeah, no, it sounds like, I like that you brought in the tactics aspect of it, because to me, I think it makes more sense to have a realm that has a very, again, unique, approach to battles. So evil, you're a smart guy. You knew kind of what was up and how to be successful, so you led a certain way. And I figure I like that more than just saying, oh well, okay, there's no volley, so let's give volley. It's just, that's why I keep bringing up the subject.
And it was also interesting too, because it's brought up about the fact that evil is already class-wise was already at an advantage. We had more classes in the other two realms than chaos and good. But again, but that's the thing I liked about it. So every realm had their own distinct advantages and disadvantages. Chaos's main advantage is they weren't really messed with light and dark. I mean, there was a point where they were, but then I think orcs were given the infravision spell, so that kind of like or they passively gave infravision to all the jobs because it wasn't enough, because at one point I guess dark was too powerful. But they really weren't messed. They really didn't have the disadvantage. Chaos was kept in check by good, more than by evil, if you think about it, because of, in my opinion, distinctly because of monks. Monks, I don't know what it was with martial arts, but monks really couldn't be hit by anything from chaos.
Yeah.
But in dark is what kept monks in check, and I think there was a theories too that it was the weapon skill that we were able to actually hit monks and actually dodge their hits. I don't know how true that was. There was some. I think I sent you a log of me with Infernal Dragon getting hit by Amaris. If I hadn't, then it's on one of my DL logs. But at a certain point, a certain light level, especially with Unholy Warrior, it didn't matter. There was nothing I could do. Amaris would just kick me in the head, and I would be dead in 2 hits.
Yeah,
but,
it does seem that the martial arts scaled pretty heavily. I think we kind of touched on that before, how it was a little out of balance, just in general.
I mean, again, there was checks and balances to everything. Like wolves were really good against. If you couldn't tap and you depended on magic, wolves would tear you apart. Maybe not so much orcs, because they could kill you in other ways and they were pretty defensive. But like priests and untapped wizards who couldn't tap, or who had just tapped someone else, ogres who just tapped someone else, They couldn't stand against wolf. Yeah, I mean, you would just whiff with spells, and vampire, like Blood Coven was just a really, really underrated, really powerful job. Zombies again had their ups and downs. Like everything had their ups and downs. Like zombies couldn't be killed really by physical; they could be knocked unconscious, but you needed a caster to really kill them. And there's been times where I've seen good zombies who would just hit and parry and then just drag our entire realm and save us because people just couldn't touch them.
Yeah, and then,
So-
like, what's your opinion, on the wolf shapeshift in DFC specifically? Because I know at some point they got overhauled, and so were they a little too
So-
strong, or?
Early on, they were really strong, and I think I can attribute that more just to the average level of the game when I started playing. Berserk really was just Berserk, and it was kind of shitty, especially on wolves. I mean, because if it was shitty on trolls, it was shitty on wolves, right? So if your opinion was that Berserk was garbage on trolls, then it was half as good on wolves because we were nowhere near offensively as strong as trolls. So it was useful to level up fast, but then at a certain point, once you had wolf form, like you really, unless you were hitting a monk, really, there was no real reason to use it in PvP, if that makes any sense. But the forms themselves were kind of garbage up until about 45, which was the Evanford Stonewolf, and then you started to see kind of a return on how good they were. And there's been instances where, I mean, me and a couple of the wolves have single-handedly just wiped chaos off the face of the fucking planet. And then there's been instances where one kobold would annihilate my entire guild. So the best form early on was the CM form, because if you know anything about wolf forms, really all that mattered was some general skills and then the settings of the form itself. So I guess at that time, the CM form was set so far ahead than anything else, where people like Thrash, or when I had it, and then later on when Bolzel was CM, like they would like rip apart everybody, and there was really no comparison. But then as the levels of the average player started to increase, wolf form started to fall behind, and that became way more evident when we started all hitting level 60. And because at that point, the last form was level 50. So level 60 form wasn't even created yet, because I guess no one expected anyone to really hit that form, so they didn't have the foresight. And that was Razzie. Razzie was a staffer who made it. And if anyone played AOL, according to some good sources, Razzie was Stealther. So if anyone played AOL, you may remember who Stealther was, but he was the GM of that game forever. And he is the one that actually came up with the idea. Him and actually Felicia, who became Rourke, who was Chaos GM for a while. They worked together, and because Rourke played a wolf named Felicia, if anyone remembers her, they actually created the level 60 wolf form, and Thrash was the first one to have it, and that's the one that introduced sigils. And then so the initial slew of level 60 wolves with sigil destroyed everything. That form was really, really good. And again, it came down to just the average level of the player. Wolves, really, I guess a lot of the contributions were wolves had a really solid regular player base, but again, motivation. Like we had something to look forward to. So a lot more of us were actually grinding out, trying to level because we wanted that form. There was an immediate return once you hit 60. It wasn't like a slow, like, oh, you hit 60, then you're kind of more powerful than people at 50. Like there was an actual front-loaded return once you hit 60. You got a form, and it was really strong. But the thing is that as players got bigger, NPCs, their accuracy was capped at 255, and that became an issue. That's why we got the sigils, because hunting became really tedious, because mob defense would raise, but mob offense accuracy was capped at 255, so we would sit there forever trying to hit mobs equivalent in level, and we'd whiff all day. We couldn't kill any monsters, so they gave us the sigils to combat that. But players found out that, okay, well, especially rogues and like rogue types, I could just make one macro, go in aggressive, I could backstab wolf, and then go quick, like right away into parry. It would cover our entire guild, because every wolf form was just wolf, backstab wolf, combat, parry, macro, and we would just whiff. But there was a lot of instances where like especially against kobolds, from my experience personally, where if they went aggressive and I hit them with one hand, I'd hit them for like 600 damage.
Right,
Because they couldn't figure out the accuracy, so to compensate, they made the